Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Let's Talk Parenting podcast, where we talk all things parenting, the fun things, the messy things, the hard things, all the things about parenting. And we are so glad you joined us today. Today, we're going to talk about godly community and how important that is. My name is Lauren, and I'm your host for today. And today, I have two special guests. One is my sister-in-law.
So very special guest.
Very, very special. And one has the best name ever. What's your name?
Lauren.
Yes. And so can y'all tell us a little bit about yourselves?
So I'm Amber. I've been married for almost 20 years, but it doesn't seem like it because I'm not that old.
Yeah, you're so young.
And we have two teenagers, one that's almost 15 and one that's 13.
Awesome.
And I'm Lauren, and I'm also married, and I've been married for 8 years. And we have 4 kids. One that is almost, her and Reagan are have almost the same birthday.
Yep.
The 23rd. Is hers 23rd?
21st.
Okay. Almost the same birthday. So she's about to be 12, and then Isabel is 6, Parker is 3, and Amelia is 2.
So lots of children.
Yes, lots of children. And a big range of ages. So.
Yes. And then I have a 2-year-old. So we have all the kids, all the ranges. And so, yeah. So parenting is hard. And sometimes we need each other. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's easy to isolate. Mm-hmm. And so we just want to talk about godly community and how it can affect our lives, because it really is just better in community. And the Lord calls us to that. And so what do y'all feel like it means to actually live out that we weren't meant to do this life alone? So we say that often, but what does it actually look like?
Well, I can say that we've done it both ways. When the kids, they're 19 months apart, so they're really close in age. When they were really little, 3 and 4, when we moved here to this area. But before that, aside from our parents, our family, we really didn't have a lot of community, a lot of, godly community. And that was tough. That was really, that was all we knew at the time, but now looking back, I can see how tough that was. And so now, we've been here for 10 years, and I wouldn't want to go back to life without community, especially as a parent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think something that's really important, you're talking about like your family. I also am very close with my family, and my mom is from a very large family. So I could literally do life with family and be, have tons of people surrounding me. But something that I have learned through like godly community is that, as much as you don't want it to be, your family is biased to you. Absolutely. Or biased to your situation, or invested, in your situation. It's affecting them. Mm-hmm. And so it's really nice actually to have like another community of people that are going to love you like a family would love you, but be able to kind of remove themselves from that situation and see it from a different view, and kind of, speak life into you in a way that your family really can't, because they're your family, and, they are like heart tied to you. In those situations. So that's something that I've really appreciated about having godly community as well.
Yeah, that's really true. And it's kind of like when you're parenting kids and, you tell your kids something and then someone else tells them and you're like, wait. And they listen,
Literally
and you're like,
that.
hey, I just said
I don't know
that.
anything about that.
Yeah. But that kind of is what that reminded me of. So that's a really good perspective. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to just get comfortable with like your same people. Mm-hmm. But like, the Lord calls us to live in community and to push each other towards Jesus. So like also godly community is something that is so important, because friendship is great. Any friends, like, having any friends are awesome, but godly people that can push you towards Jesus when it's hard, or when you're struggling, or when you're tired and you don't know what to do, or you're overwhelmed and you're stressed, and someone that's not a believer may be like, yeah, this is terrible, and just like sympathize with you. But godly people, godly community can push you towards Jesus and change your focus back. Yeah. And so
Olivia and I talk about that quite often here lately. She's going to 7th grade this year, and she's really struggling with her godly community. Like, I mean, she has, the kids in our small group, but 2 of them do go to the same school as her, or to Westlake schools, but they're older. They're not in the same grade as her. And then the others, none of them go to the same school as her. So she doesn't have those people within the school with her. So she's really just been struggling with having those people that are like-minded for her as a 7th grader. And so we have a lot of those conversations of, you can be friends, because she hops tables at lunch, like she's friends with everybody. And, we have that conversation of, you can have friends and be friends with people, all of them, but your inner circle, your people, need to be the people that are like-minded. And, I give her that example all the time. Like, mom loves and has friends that, aren't believers, or, their life isn't centered around Christ. And they're not the people that I'm going to go to whenever I need somebody to point me to Jesus. They're going to be the people that I cut up with, or I have fun with, and you joke around with. And, we do have heart-to-hearts, but the person that I'm going to go to if I need something, that I need them to tell me what Jesus would tell me, is going to be a person that, is like-minded. And so that is something that I feel like I've learned through community to be able to pass down to my children, is that like, you have to have that, and you can have that now. You don't have to wait until you're 38 to have, godly friends. So,
and what's so great about something you said about pass it down to your kids is, we have been a part of small group communities since we moved here 10 years ago. So my kids have essentially grown up in that environment. And it's so important for them to see us do that, because then when they start making those decisions, they realize, hey, this is the type of community I need. But the other side to that is, and our small groups director, Bo, is always talking about spiritual aunts and uncles. Like, my kids have lots of those. So I know that if they don't want to come to me, there's other people I would completely trust them going to for advice and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, both of y'all, I know y'all obviously very well, and y'all both have children who love Jesus and who try to seek that. And so what would you say to a mom or a dad that is struggling to tell their kids or talk to their kids about community specifically? You just gave us a great example showing her how to do it, but Amber, do you have anything else to say about that? Because I know that that's very difficult, and that's a very real thing when it comes to parenting.
I think, I think just having open, honest conversations with your kids, and that's something that you can't be afraid to do in this world, because there's so much worldly advice coming at our kids all the time. I think always pointing it back to Jesus. There's lots of advice out there, lots of books, self-help, all the things. But at the end of the day, centering the conversation and pointing it back to Jesus. And maybe it's as simple as me saying like, hey, what about, Miss Lauren, we've been in small group with her before. Maybe this is something you can sit down and talk with her about, just other trusted adults, but showing, like also, when I was my kid's age, I wasn't necessarily in godly community. I mean, I was in church, but things looked a lot different back then, and didn't always have the best friends pointing me to the best things, and even sharing those things with my kids, being honest and vulnerable and sharing with my kids like, hey, I made these decisions because I wasn't following Jesus in this situation, and, just living out life and giving life advice to them like that.
Yeah. I do think honesty is super, super important, and just being open with your kids. And I think that sometimes, and, I'm a teacher. Well, if y'all don't know, I'm a teacher. But, I teach middle school. And so I get to see a lot of the lack that are in homes. And I just try to be very honest with my kids, and I think another thing is on top of honesty, but leading by example. Like if you're wanting your kids to, surround themselves with godly people, or you surrounding yourself with godly people, if you want them to be involved in church, are you involved in church? If you want them to, not just attend church, but you want them to have that relationship, or are you modeling that relationship in your own life? And so I think that it's really not just in community, but every aspect that they're watching you. You're their biggest, component to, like we talk about all the time, like it's, the home and then the church, like holding hands together. And so if we're not showing that we're holding hands with the church, and we're not doing our part as a parent to show them that we're living out that life, then they're not going to do that themselves, because, well, my parents don't do that, so why would I? So I think that that's super important for us to do as parents. And I think we just need to be a little bit uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable having those conversations, especially as your kids get older. And I'm in that season now, like I'm just learning that, that you have to have hard conversations, even if it hurts their feelings, even if it makes you uncomfortable. You have to have them, because one day you're going to look back and say, if I would have done that, or if I would have told them that, will you regret that you didn't?
Yeah. And if you can't, then who can?
Yeah.
As
somebody will.
Yeah, somebody will.
And they're probably not going to tell them what you would have told them.
Yeah. Yeah. And point them back to Jesus. Yeah, for sure. And so, Jesus modeled this for us in the Bible, and he modeled it so well. And so what stands out to y'all about how Jesus lived? Because, we talk about we don't want to live in isolation. And I'm sure we've all been there where we decided to isolate or pull back. But is there anything that sticks out as far as like biblically that, helps you to think through how Jesus lived in community or even modeled it for us? Because you're talking about how we should model that for our children, and we 100% should. But Jesus modeled it for us. So is there anything that kind of sticks out to y'all about that?
One thing that I go back to a lot, and we, Amber and I both went to middle school camp this summer, and I had, my small group, we talked about this, and then we talk about it at home all the time, but God chose us. Jesus chose us, he doesn't need us. And he didn't need his disciples. He didn't need the people. He could have just come and done what he wanted to do on his own and made it happen. But he chose to do that for us. And so I think that, if he values being in community and being with others and not isolating himself, as we talked about earlier, then that's the perfect example. So why would we not do that, And so I think that that's something that I always take away from how he modeled his life on earth, is if that's how he came and lived his life. Yeah. Was with people and wanting to be with people. And I mean, you don't read very often that he just was by himself. He was always surrounded by others, And so, obviously, if that's a good model for him, then it's probably something that we should pick up ourselves and model, in our lives.
And I think too, like you said, Jesus was always with his people. He would go alone to pray or rest, but he was not only teaching and encouraging them, but he was also equipping them to go out and do the same thing, his disciples. And that's kind of what we should do also in community is, we have our people alongside us, but it's also our job, to help disciple and encourage and teach so that we can continue that model. And, people can branch out and continue to show Jesus.
Yeah. And I think too, like we know that he taught in crowds. He was around people a ton. He was always in a crowd, but then he had his 12, right, disciples that he was close to, and he taught them and he walked with them and he did life with them. But then he had just close 3 that he did like very, we would call it now like a D group or a discipleship group, right? But like he poured heavily into them and he walked even closer with them. And so I think that's one thing for me, like you can't be super close with every single person in your life. I want to surround, I have a ton of friends and I'm thankful for them and I'm blessed with them. But you can't be gut level, super close, honest with every single person in your entire life. Right. And so even our small group, we have a great small group and we meet together, we hang out together. But even within that relationship, there's some that are a little more close, to me, and I'm a little more close to them. And it's just being, seeing that modeled by Jesus helps me, as a person and a mom to know that I can be friends with however many people, that I want to, but then there's going to be people that are closer to me, and there's seasons where that, kind of ebbs and flows. And that's a good model for me, that even Jesus himself, he can do whatever he wants to do. He can be friends with whoever he wants, right? He can teach whoever he wants to teach, but he still chose that model, if you will, of, there was crowds, then there was a little bit smaller of a group, and then there was a really intimate group. And that helps me to see. And speaking truth, I think y'all both kind of hinted at it. We as God, believers in God and in Jesus, like, should be pointing people to him. And so what does that look like? It means speaking the truth in love. You know, God showed us that, and he never shied away from speaking truth. And that's hard. It's not always easy. And so, but it is real. And that's the difference between godly community and just a friend that you have, you know, it's different for sure. Yeah. And so maybe there's someone out there that's like, I love what y'all are saying, and I want this. I want to have godly community. I would love to have it, but I don't. And I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. What would y'all say to them? What would be y'all's advice to them?
So I know that personally I can be, I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but sometimes I don't like to try new things.
And you like to get really comfortable on your farm.
I am. I'm just a homebody, but like, you know, I don't always like to try new things. I like my normal routine. And so I know that there's probably moms, ladies that are, you know, just like, I'm just comfortable. But sometimes we really I just challenge you to step out of that comfort zone. And that's something the Lord has really taught me over these last 10 years is like, hey, you're not going to change if you're comfortable all the time, you know, and not only like to receive from others, but what the Lord has given me to encourage others with. I think sometimes it's just a matter of like we always talk about next steps, but like taking that next step of being like, hey, I know I love being home with my kids, or I like just going to work and coming home and being in my little comfortable space. But sometimes it does take you being brave and bold enough to step out and say, hey, I know I'm lacking this in my life and I really need this.
Yeah. Sorry, my voice went out. One thing that I was going to say is you just got to do it. But and this is kind of negative, but like it doesn't get any easier whenever you do it. Like there are Sundays that I'm like, I do not want to go be a part of my community. You know, like small group, like Sunday mornings, church, like Wednesday, like those are non-negotiable for me. And I think that is part of like just doing it is like making sure that like you have to decide, is this going to be something that I'm going to be wishy-washy about and I'm going to, I want to come, I'm not going to come, well, it's convenient for me to go now, or are you just going to do it? I share this story all the time, but we had a former pastor that worked here, and it was a really bad rainy weather day on Sunday, and I did not go to church. And he, I think, had posted on social media at some point just something reflective, not like to condemn anybody, but he sure did convict me. And this was like double-digit years ago, probably. But he said, you know, would you have gotten up and went to work this morning? If the weather had been like it was on a weekday. And I was like, well, absolutely. Like I have to go to work. And at that moment, I have not missed church since I read that on the internet, because I realized like I was prioritizing and making work more important than, and like I can watch church at home, I can, you know, all of these things, but it's not the same as being in the community, you know, with the people that are like-minded as you. And there are times that I don't want to get up and come because
you have 4 kids and it's hard. I see, you know, it's hard.
I mean, I'll be late but to serve the church, but I am serving the church.
That's
right. But the struggle is real. But whenever we make that decision, it also is painting a picture for our children, going back to like leading by example, right? Like if Olivia spends the night somewhere, like she can spend the night at my brother's house, and I will text my brother and say, she has to be at church tomorrow. Like, what service are you going to? Because he serves, you know, where will you be? So I can make sure she gets here. And so, you know, it's a non-negotiable, I think, is what you have to look at it as, because you're showing your kids that either it's a choice or it's something that should be like etched into your life. And I just think that that's like invaluable to teach your kids that, like, you know, you need to be here. And now we're to the point where Olivia, like, if we're going to miss, she's like, but they need me. And I'm like, those kindergartners do need you, girl. But they, you know, she has created that in her mind that like, no, I must be there. And then I'm going to tell you, whenever you start small group, you will have accountability within your home because your children will say, are we going to small group? And when you go, they're like, are we going to small group? And I'm like, yes, we're going to small group. Because sometimes you're just so tired and like you have work the next morning.
That's life.
And then you get there and you're like,
so thankful I came.
Perry has been working at nights a lot and he works every Sunday night. And I have been in small group for Olivia's 11. So I've literally been in small group since Olivia was born. And since Perry and I have been married, I literally don't know that I've ever heard him say like, because Perry's more like sit back and like he socializes over the food. Like he doesn't really socialize too much once we get into like conversation, but that's how he is at home. And he the other day was like, I really miss going to small group. And I was like, what? I was so shocked, but
it just adds to your life. It
trickles down and it's also relationships that go beyond, like whenever they make you break up and all of that, I know it's multiply, but like it goes so beyond that because we aren't even in Amber and John's small group anymore. But I was telling Perry last night, like, they're just my people. Like I will text them and be like, this is what's going on. I just need y'all to pray for me. And like, they're not even my small group leaders anymore, you know? I've been in several and I see the fruit of that because Isabel, was just baptized on Sunday and I took picture after picture after picture, or Leah came and took pictures of, okay, well, here comes Johnny Boy. And he takes a picture with Isabel because he was, her small group leader for years. And here comes Becky. And then here comes Amber. And then, here comes all of these people. And it was like all of these, we've been in Becky and Jonathan's small group. And then, John baptized Isabel. And so it's just, you see the fruit of being in community when your community shows up for you in those special moments too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think too, like the fact that you're saying like sometimes it's hard. It's true. It's real. It's reality. Like we're tired. We all work full time. Our husbands work full time. We all go to church. We're involved. Yeah. And so like it is hard. But I think too, like changing your mindset, because even when you don't feel like it, like reaching out to someone for yourself or for them, like sometimes ministry or community is inconvenient. Absolutely. Celebrating someone, like you might be tired and be like, nah, I don't want to do this. But like, you don't know what the Lord's going to do in someone else's life because you sent a text or because you took them something or because you prayed for them or you went and celebrated them. And so I think, changing the mindset, even when it's hard, to remember and be like, no, like I'm called to live in community and I want to be there for my people and I want to text them and I want to reach out even when I don't really feel like it. That always helps.
I think that goes back to whenever we were kind of like planning and everything, like the intentionality of it, right? Like sometimes it's inconvenient to be intentional with people, but that's where you make a difference. And we're not called to just love people, that are like us, or just love people that are lost, or just like, we're called to love everybody. And yes, we're called to share the gospel and, to sit with sinners and stuff, and all of these things, to sit with one another and draw them to Jesus. But also we're called to lift up the people that, are believers that are going through hard times. And I think my favorite word whenever I teach Sunday school is to be very aware, Sunday school, small group, whatever. But to be aware of this, old habits die hard. But to be aware of, what's going on around you. And like, whenever you see something that you can connect with to take that opportunity and stop and say, let me do that, because you get to.
Yes.
Not that. Because you have to. I thought that exact thing. Like, I get to be a part of this. I get to have friends that are going to point me to Jesus. Yeah. And like, I get to connect with them. And it's not, life is life. And that's what we said, especially, like my teenagers who can't drive, but have 8,000 things that they need to go do every day.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh man. But I think perspective on it is that, and it's just, we have something special here. We really do in this community, like in our community as a whole, but just, I'm just so thankful. Like there's so many times where I'm just like humbled and so thankful that the Lord allows me to be a part of those things.
That's awesome. Yeah. So as we wrap up, just a quick word of encouragement to the mom or the dad. Hopefully we have some dads listening too, but one word or a couple sentences of encouragement to someone who wants to be in community that's right there on the verge. Like, what's your last like go to? Like, here's a kicker for the end of the of the podcast. Like, what is one thing you would tell them?
I'd say like accept the invite. Like, don't come up with, look, I'm one of those like, I got to feed my chickens. I got to do this, like full of excuses. But, just like sometimes we don't need to think about it. We just need to do it. Like maybe just go for it. If you have the invite to be a part of a community, that can be a scary thing sometimes, just to walk into the unknown. But like, you will never regret those connections that you make.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My mind just always goes to like life and the things that I've faced in life. And I really don't want to imagine what it would have looked like without the community of my small group and the community of my church. And just even, my friendships that I have that they don't go to our church or they're not in my small group that are godly people, like if I wouldn't have had them to lean on in those moments. So it's almost like you're doing yourself a disservice by not giving it a try, because you're taking away an element of your life that could change everything. That having that community of people, it's not going to change the fact that, your dad almost died, from a sickness. It's not going to change the fact that, you've gone through the struggles that you've gone through with your husband. It's not going to change the fact that, you're depressed. It's not going to change those things. You're still going to have to go through those hard things, just like when we become believers. This is not a couple sentences. I'm an English teacher. I have words. Good, though. It's really good. But, it's not going to change the circumstances of your life, but it is going to change how you view them and who's speaking life into you, and not having to do them by yourselves, and just all the different aspects of life. You're not having to face that alone. And we're not called to be isolated or alone. We're called to live in community. And we are, I don't care. So many times I tell my students, like, I don't care that you think that, you want to be a loner. You don't. Like, actually, you might be seeking attention because you want to be alone, And so we have those conversations, and I think it's the same thing. Sometimes we want to pull ourselves back, but almost it's like we want to pull ourselves back for someone to see that I'm hurting, or, like, you might not realize that that's what you're doing, but in reality, you are. And, there are people that want to be to be a part of your life and to breathe life in you. There's so many people, just in our church, that want to love on you. And, I kind of liked how you put it, like, not to reject the invitation to do so. I mean, how many times does Bo get on the stage and, say, he literally just said Sunday, like, we have so many opportunities for you to be in community, in a small group, some sort of small group. And then there's so many to choose from. Like, when it started, it was really just like, this is the one kind we have, or like Sunday or small group at somebody's house. And now there's so many choices. There's just no way that you can not find somewhere to
can't
fit.
Figure it out. Yeah. Awesome. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much. This has been so good.
Thank you.
Not just because I'm biased, but because y'all are the best. And so thank y'all for joining us on the Let's Talk Parenting podcast. If you enjoyed it, if you liked it, you can comment or subscribe. And also, we want you to come back and join us. We are so thankful that we get this opportunity to talk together about parenting. And so we will see you soon. Bye.